Hello everyone, Ruby Ravel here, the dishevelled flight attendant of astrology, here to talk to you today about Mars square Jupiter. Please keep all your arms, legs and additional appendages, tentacles, suckers, what have you, within the vehicle. If you happen to see a clown on the wing of the plane dismantling the engine, do not panic. This is not a drill, it is all part of standard operating procedure. I will be your pilot and flight attendant this evening. I'm playing multiple roles. I am polymorphic. I am a shapeshifter. I can bilocate and be in many places at once, which is very useful when you are running your own imaginary flight company. Do not sue me. Anyway, Mars square Jupiter as an aspect is a clarion call for greater growth, but being a square, it is growth that can only occur if we are willing to test and push the limits of our own personal resistance. Now, this might sound odd to begin with because Mars and Jupiter ordinarily would be friends, but we have to remember that Mars may be a warrior, he may be a hunter, but if he has also found an area in which he has consolidated his own feeling of power, he might not want to go beyond it. If a hunter has found a patch where he knows all the routes, he knows all the territory, he knows all the game trails, he knows what he's doing, he's confident that he's always going to get more kills and more animals, he's not necessarily always going to respond to Jupiter saying, there's a great migration of bison going into that uncharted territory over there. Wouldn't it be exciting to follow them? And Mars says, well, actually, I've kind of got everything I need right here. I don't need to go chasing off into far distant horizons. So as with squares, there's always this push-pull dynamic going on. This shall I stay or shall I go approach to growth versus stasis. The tension generated by squares is also because it will attempt to unite and synthesize energies from signs that have very different ways of approaching the problem of living. In this case, it is Mars in Cancer squaring Jupiter in Aries. And as I've mentioned in my previous Mars in Cancer videos, Mars is in his fall in this sign and is not really able to behave in a typical martial manner. If we think of Mars as being connected to our fighting instinct, the part that is willing to defend us and assert itself on our behalf, that has a sense of desire and lust and willpower that it wants to express and see operative in the world, and has the resilience and the self-belief to take on any obstacles that it comes in its way. This is very antithetical to the notions of Cancer, which doesn't want conflict with other people. It doesn't want disharmony. It doesn't want the potential pain or scarification that can occur when we get involved in a skirmish or a challenge against the odds of the outside world. It wants to stay safe and cocooned and in its zone of familiarity that it connects with its ancestral origins. It wants to feel close to people, not in conflict with them. And therefore Mars in Cancer, rather than being a go-getter like that as planet is intended to be, is more inclined to be conflict avoidant. It's more inclined to stay away from challenges or feel too sensitive and weak to believe that it can do many things by itself according to its own devices. So this sensitivity and moodiness and fear of anything that could make it feel rejected or cut off or separate from anything that nourishes it and makes it feel connected with the pool of origins and the safety and security of life means that it doesn't have the resolve usually to take the initiative in situations that are critical or complex or dangerous in some way. If it sees a potential conflict arising, it's going to say, I would rather just withdraw because I don't feel I have the resources or wherewithal to tackle that. I don't want to be hurt, so I would rather just simply stay at home and not try, rather than, get my hopes up and just find myself disappointed and dejected because it knows it's so sensitive that it will need to spend a long time self-soothing and licking its wounds before it feels ready to fight and go out again. So if you think about the lunar cycle ruling that Mars in Cancer, it has a cyclical approach to its own confidence, and its moods also strongly influence how confident it feels in terms of tackling the difficulties of life. And it may have these little bursts of enthusiasm and strength here and there, but it can just as easily be knocked down by a small change in the wind. It's very hyper-responsive to all the little changes that it feels in the energetic water flowing around it, and that can make all the difference between its feeling of there being a victory or it just deciding in advance that there's going to be a failure. Mars in Cancer does feel powerful, however, when it is called upon to play the role of mother, nurturer, caretaker. The natural desire of the energies of Cancer is to play the role of either child or mother, to be in this nurturer or nurtured position. And if it's in a position where it sees someone who can benefit from its nursing, from its love, from its gentle affection, then it will take that creature and it will clutch them to it. And through seeing the power of its ability to heal, mother, and gently contain someone or something else, it can feel more vital and more capable in terms of dealing with the world. But if it doesn't have an outlet for that compassion and that maternal outpouring, then that can only make it feel weakened and powerless, and as though it has no place in the world. So this isn't really a Mars that is an adventurer and a fighter who's off looking for his next heroic quest. This is a Mars who would much rather stay at home, cook nice cupcakes for everyone, and rest between mother's breasts. This Mars in Cancer is doubly weakened at the moment by the fact that she is still in an applying square with Chiron. And again, if Cancer wants that sense of familial togetherness, of feeling like it is part of this safe matrix, this nuclear unit in which it can kind of enmesh itself and be another fish in the secure familial pond, one of the common feelings that arises during tense Chiron aspects is a feeling of being an exile, a pariah, a maverick, an outcast, of not feeling like we have anywhere where we really belong in the world. And Mars in Cancer craves belonging more than anything. And Chiron says, I am a wounded centaur. I am a freak of nature. I am neither flesh nor fowl. There is no real place for me in the world. And if we look at the symbolism of Chiron as being this half man, this half horse, this centaur who was civilized and therefore too intelligent and genteel and cultivated to belong to the member of the race of the centaurs from which he came, but was also too bestial an animal to truly be a proper human either. And he was also a demigod, so he wasn't completely God, but he also wasn't completely just a mortal thing of the earth either. So in many ways he had this experience of simultaneously having the best of both worlds, but also the worst of both worlds. And even though there are significant pros and cons that come along with it, when you are this unusual creature that is truly an individual in the Aryan sense, but that individuality isolates you from a sense of greater connectedness or belonging to other people, there is a degree to which that can be painful, where it feels like I have become myself, I have become an individual, but at the cost of not feeling like there's anyone around me who can really understand me, who can really be part of my tribe, with whom I can really have an equal personal one-to-one relationship. I always just have to keep slogging it out there alone as my own solar hero, when actually from time to time it would be nice to be able to step back and feel like I have some roots and sweet safe maternal origins that I can go back to, just to give myself a sense of rest and respite. So the tension from that is already making Mars in Cancer's very difficult transit even tougher. But then Jupiter comes along and says, something's got to change. We can't just stay here feeling sorry for ourselves, sulking, having a pity party, and just, kind of pottering about the house until everything blows over. There's a world out there that we need to engage with. There's a whole horizon of uncharted territories, of terra incognita, of unexplored vistas and unknown cultures that could be ours for the taking. I appreciate that you're feeling sensitive and wounded and overwhelmed and dejected and rejected and freakish and out of touch with humanity. But, if you allow yourself to be dominated by those things, if you allow yourself to be pulverized by the potency of your own pain, isn't that just nihilism? Isn't that admitting defeat? By all means admit defeat when you die, but now is for living. Now is for seizing the day. Now is carpe diem. So you have to overcome that part of you that just wants to stay safe and secure in your safe surroundings, and venture out a little bit. Come out of your shell, come out of your safe coral cave, and see how majestic and wonderful the rest of the world really is. And Mars in Cancer looks up at Jupiter in Aries, who, looks majestic and glorious and powerful and wise, and she's there hiding away under a pile of blankets with a box of tissues and lots of chocolates around her, and a bit of a runny nose, and maybe a comfy woolly jumper on as well. And she has mixed feelings about the way Jupiter's reaching out to her, because Jupiter in Aries does have some mutual reception with Mars in Cancer, although Jupiter is considered to be weakly placed in regard to the energies of Cancer as well. So there's some accord and there's some discord, because Mars in Cancer likes the benevolence and the confidence and the swagger of Jupiter. He seems like a safe avuncular character who is wishing her well, and who could potentially offer her some kind of nurturance. But it's a nurturance that will say, I will give you good things, I will bless you with bounty and grace, but you've got to be willing to crawl away from those bed covers, honey. But there's another part that also sees this Jupiter as perhaps being a bit of a snake oil salesman, of being a used car salesman, as someone who is overselling and over-egging something that is actually maybe not that special, not that worth putting all this difficulty and not worth overcoming resistance for. He's overspicing the bearer brief. Can this person who's promising us this expanded universe, who's promising us exposure to things that will enrich our lives and deepen our sense of integration with the rest of humankind, can we trust these promises? How do we know we're not just being exploited for our own ends? How do we know we're not being asked to go into uncharted territories and then find ourselves being robbed by pirates? Is it really worth it? Mars in Cancer says, I might be unhappy, I might be miserable, I might be tortured, I might be wounded, but at least I know where I am staying here. If I go out there, where's my hearth then? Where's my Hestia then? Where's my comfort blankets? That's certainly not out there in the world. And what if I get humiliated again? What if I get hurt? And what if I fall on my face? And Jupiter says, well, all of those things are part of the larger tapestry and colour and drama of existence. They are not to be avoided. They are all things to be celebrated as having a meaningful symbolic content in the larger narrative of our life. It doesn't have to be this tragic thing that destroys us and unmakes us and cracks our shell forever. It can be something that helps us evolve and to develop a greater sense of our connectivity with the divine and the rest of the world, you know. You're trying to find belonging by staying at home, by clinging to those things that seem safe and familiar. But I'm saying there's a wider human family that could offer you a greater sense of belonging. How do you know if you don't travel to another country that you won't find your tribe? How do you know if you don't undergo this new area of study that it might not open your mind up to whole cultures and different philosophies and religions and ways of seeing that actually make you realize home is not a place. Home is not just what you know, but home, it can also be found in the adventure of having a relationship with the unknown and the deepening sense of warmth and intimacy and excitement that we get once we start to colour in those gaps in the unknown, once we see the map of our life and begin to flesh it out more and feel that we have not been living in the shadows, but that we can look at a globe and see how much of it has now been made ours and how much greater a sense of fullness and holistic wholeness we now feel because of those experiences. Don't you want that, Mars in Cancer? And the fact is, Mars in Cancer to some degree enjoys remaining in the shadows. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the literal constellations that we see in the sky, but Cancer is one of the most nebulous, the most shadowy, the most adumbrated, the most vague. It's pinioned between Gemini on one side and Leo on the other, which are both very bright stars of significant magnitude and size. Even if you're in a city, these two constellations will still stand out quite clearly, with Castor and Pollux over here, and then Regulus, the royal star in the heart of the lion on the other side. And yet Cancer, unless you are in a dark sky reserve or a very unlight polluted place, it's very hard to make out. The stars are like these faint whispers in the celestial sphere, and there is even a nebula, the Beehive Nebula, tucked away in the middle, which only adds to this sense of this murky thing that's there but not quite there, just in the way that in rivers crayfish and crabs will often conceal themselves and hide away. You know, they're always skirting around things. They don't directly want to be seen. They feel safer when they are in the shadows. So when Jupiter in Aries is saying, come forth into my glorious heroic realm of light, it's hard for Mars in Cancer not just to see that as an invitation into a realm of danger and conflict that she would rather stay out of. And yet at some point, as is always with squares, we have to be willing to reach a point of synthesis, a point of compromise. It can be tempting, definitely, to feel like there is a crossroads and we have to choose one energy over the other, but it usually works best if we can find a way of alchemizing both of these energies and coming to some kind of point of unity. So there is a sense with this aspect that if we truly want to grow and expand and do what we can to heal our wounded egos and sense of our own harassed and woe-begotten individuality, then we have to be prepared to put ourselves out there even when we feel vulnerable and sensitive and easily overcome. We have to be willing to negotiate with the part of us that would rather stay small and then come to some kind of middle ground. And having that kind of resistance with Jupiter and Aries isn't always a bad thing, because Jupiter, when he is supported, when he does meet a planet that just says, yes, whatever you want, Jupiter, take me on whatever crazy adventure you want, yes, then he can easily become this megalomaniac who believes he is too big, too grandiose, too blessed by the gods to ever fall. And it's just when he has that kind of thinking that we do end up going too far and having a big fall on him face. Whereas actually when someone is trying to hold back Jupiter, whereas someone is saying, okay, you know, we need to put some reins and limits on these things, we can go, but we shouldn't go too far, then we can be a bit more controlled and conscientious in terms of the growth that we do seek. And because we have to put more effort, more conscientious effort into achieving that growth, rather than just kind of allowing it to prosper of its own accord, we appreciate more the fruits of our labours and the myriad ways in which it has enriched our life. So we are more conscientious about the chances that we do choose to take, about the gambles we're willing to go on, about the improvised moments in life that we are prepared to chase. It's not uncommon with squares for us to identify with one god of this aspect and then to project the other side onto someone else. So we might find ourselves identifying more with the Mars in Cancer and therefore meeting Jupiter in Aries either as someone else or as a situation we experience in life that seems to be saying, you know, stop hiding away, stop staying at home, come out and go on this glorious quest or new venture or undertaking with me. Or we might feel that we're more of the Jupiter and Aries, that we are feeling this drive to be more exploratory and bombastic, or to want to be this benevolent teacher offering guidance and help and insight to a Mars in Cancer person we meet who's looking quite wounded and sensitive and directionless and lost, and we say, come with us, you know, come under my wing, I'll show you the ropes, I'll take you on journeys into the air, and I'll look after you, and I'll make sure that I expand your universe while keeping you safe at the same time. We also shouldn't forget that Mars is connected with sexuality, and therefore I feel that some of this could also be expressed in a conflict between wanting to stick with sexual experiences that are safe and known and familiar with us, versus Jupiter in Aries that wants to leap out and run into bed with everyone and try new things, to sample more from the erotic smorgasbord of existence. So if we think about Mars in Cancer's sexuality in terms of engaging in sexual congress with someone else, it's mostly concerned with a feeling of emotional intimacy and safety with someone else, you know, whether it's snuggling and spooning or softly kissing, or, you know, while watching a movie or engaging in bondage or BDSM. The main thing is that it feels emotionally connected with its partner, and that the sex is a vehicle for achieving and expressing that emotional intimacy rather than the other way around. Whereas for Jupiter in Aries, channeling that energy, it's interested in experimenting sexually simply because any new sexual experience it will have with any new kind of person or partner or different sexual modality will open up new insights as to what it knows about itself as a living being. For Jupiter, sex isn't just about the pleasure and the hedonism and the personal enjoyment, but feeling like it has this broader awareness of all the different ways in which eroticism can manifest, and feeling like it has this encyclopedic knowledge of pleasure in all her different permutations, you know. Jupiter, if we compare sex to eating a meal. Jupiter isn't the kind of person who wants to sit down and have the same nice, safe mama's recipe meal every night like Mars in Cancer does. He wants to try every damn thing on the menu, and it doesn't really matter whether he likes it all or not. It's just that he has permitted himself that breadth and depth and variety of experience that can tell him more about all the different ways and diversity of means for which God has expressed himself or herself playfully in the manifest cosmos at large. So in Precis, you could say that sexually Mars in Cancer likes to stick with where it feels safe and emotionally nurtured, whereas Jupiter in Aries wants to keep all the doors open, because if you close a door, nothing pleasant can get through it. Nothing horrible can either, which is what Mars in Cancer says, but Jupiter thinks the more doors I leave open, the more chances are something truly wonderful and mind-blowing is going to come through one of those doors, and I want to be ready, willing and able to tackle it by the ankles and throw it on the bed as soon as it does. Anyway, I could go on about this ad nauseum, but I'm happy to stop that there. Please feel free to share any of your own Mars square Jupiter aspects or stories with me. Please like, share and subscribe this video. You can support me on Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Stars Unraveled. You can follow me on Instagram at astrology and underwear, and I hope that the recent solar eclipse has been kind to you.